deflation means a substantial fall in the cost of living, okay? Not the fall in zinc prices or something like that, a fall in cost of living. And that, of course, hasn't happened and won't happen. And it won't happen as long as the Federal Reserve has the infinite power to create money, which they have. And so they'll find, if you have the power to create money, the power to print money, you'll do it. That's one of Rothbard's laws. I have my own laws. One is that if you have the power to print money, you'll do it. Okay? Regardless of any ideology or statements that you should limit your counterfeit operations to 3% a year, as the Freemanites want to do. Basically, you'll print it. You find various reasons for it. You save banks, you save people, you save the people of Argentina, whatever. There's lots of reasons for creating more money. And that's really the problem.
Well, the Federal Reserve has the power to print money, but they don't really print very much money. They print credit. And that's very different from money because it draws interest. And it looked like a good deal going in, but the interest becomes such a weight burden at some point they can't expand credit. Then what happens?
Well, they can expand credit. They print money, and usually the money goes out in the form of buying assets of one sort or another. So if they buy government bonds, for example, this means the government bond dealer gets whatever the money for, say, a million. Say the Fed writes out a check for $1 million of government bonds. The bond dealer gets the $1 million check, which means the Federal Reserve System promises to pay to the bearer $1 million. He can't do it because only banks can have deposit accounts with the Federal Reserve banks. He deposits in his bank, or else he tears it up, which he won't do. He deposits in Chase or Citibank or whatever. They get a reserve increase of $1 million. They pyramid credit 10 to 1 on top of it. This is basically what happens. In other words, it's a creation of money through the fact that the Federal Reserve has the power to print. Because if anybody asks the Fed to redeem your deposits in dollars, they'll print the dollars and redeem it. So the power to actually print the money is the basis for the whole inflationary system. Doesn't mean they actually print the money and spend it. That's what the Treasury used to do in the Civil War. But it's a more sophisticated way of doing it. They write out checks out of thin air, buy bonds with it, and then the checks or the deposits on the Fed then go out into the system, circulate in the system. And say if anybody wants to redeem their deposits in cash, the Fed will print the cash to pay it off. So that's the process. It's equivalent. It's less honest, but equivalent to the old idea the Treasury prints money and spends it on missiles or whatever.
But that can't go on forever because of the interest burden.
Well, the interest burden can be, the interest burden is increased. The interest burden can always be alleviated, so to speak, by inflation. In other words, the more you inflate, the lower the interest burden becomes.
Not if you inflate with credit. They're inflating with credit. Right. They're not inflating with money.
It's
printing of money.
It's the result of credit is money, dollars. Okay, I call money dollars. And dollars is what pays for goods and services.
Well, the amount of dollars in circulation are very small compared to the amount of credit.
Well, I mean, I don't know how you pay for stuff. I pay for stuff by writing out a check, and that's dollars. And this check is accepted by my people I spend money on. That's I call that money. Most people call it money.
Murray's point is that this credit can easily be converted into money. That's the whole idea behind the Federal Reserve System.
Well, I used to scold bankers for being part of this inflation problem. I argued that when they made these loans they fabricated them on the books that contributed to inflation because it expanded the money supply. Their argument was, no, that doesn't expand the money supply because the loans will be paid off. I argued back, no, they don't ever pay them off. They just substitute collateral and borrow more money, which is what we've done up to a point. But there comes a point where people can't service the debt any longer. And then the banks, they would like to get some of that money back that they loaned out. And it looks like there's a limitation on how much credit you can extend in the system. And we're somewhere near that. The credit can continue to expand somewhat. But under the present system, we don't have the capacity to inflate substantially, not like we've done in the past. I mean, we're somewhere near the limit.
I just don't understand your statement. Israel now has a 900% inflation rate per annum.
Yeah, okay. But they don't do it with credit. They do it with money. They're printing money. You can have unlimited inflation.
They do it with credit.
As long as you run currency.
I'm sorry. The Bank of Israel buys government bonds to pay the deficit.
You do have problems, and we see some domestic banks experiencing them now. When they've granted large loans or increased their loans outstanding over the years in the anticipation that inflation will keep rising and make the debtors able to service the loan debt. Then all of a sudden you get a downturn in the economy and many people can't service their debts. That's what we've seen, for example, with First Chicago, Continental Illinois, and things like that. But Murray's point, of course, is that as long as you don't have that unexpected downturn, banks can keep rolling over their debt as long as the Federal Reserve is providing them the wherewithal to do it. Now, I think we all agree there are some upper limits. For example, we saw this hyperinflation in Germany after World War II, and this is what Murray and Professor Peden were talking about this morning. The inflation so racks the society, and the controls put on not to get at the root cause of it, but to try and make it the politicians palatable for the citizens to live with, ultimately brings down the society. There's a major factor. And that is kind of the limit I think you're referring to as well. I think we all hope and pray that we don't get to that position in the United States, and with good dialogue like we've had here today and very informative presentations, perhaps we can strengthen the message we need to send so that those events won't occur. Well, I have about 12:15 now, which means we're running a few minutes late, so why don't we adjourn for lunch, and let's assemble back here, about 1:15 this afternoon, or as quickly as we can after 1 o'clock, so we can have our afternoon session. Again, thank you very much.